tonight I was able to talk one of my colleagues into coming and giving a presentation. Jim Hawhee is the Policy and Engagement Manager for ATMEP, which is the Albemarle-Pamlico National Estuary Partnership. And we also have Katya here tonight filming this for some of their social media that they're very active with. So Jim, I think, is going to give us a really good presentation tonight, some nice pictures of the sound, if that's what you want to get out of this. Also, I think a lot more in-depth information on the sounds and the efforts that the ATMEP program is pursuing in this area, keeping the sounds paddleable and protecting the resources out there for us. So please let's welcome Jim.
So I'll start up here just so everybody can kind of see my face. I had to choose between sort of being boxed in the corner here with that blinding light or having the safety of my notes back here. So I'm going to be back here in a couple of minutes, but just and sort of talk with you through the course of this presentation. But again, my name is Jim Hawhee with ATMEP, the Albemarle-Pamlico National Estuary Partnership. It is a mouthful. We're a small team within the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and we engage in a number of diverse initiatives to protect and restore the sounds of North Carolina. Of course, you can't do that without protecting the rivers that feed into them. So I hope you'll learn a little bit more about what we do, maybe about the sounds themselves, and then toward the end of this talk, I'm going to maybe provide an opportunity for you all to hook in with one of the efforts that we're doing. As kayakers, you're uniquely positioned to see some things, and you have some unique knowledge of the water that I'm hoping we might be able to get a core group of you and perhaps take advantage of as the summer wears on. So I'm going to sneak back here. So the first thing, Albemarle-Pamlico National Estuary Partnership, it is a mouthful. There are 8 major sounds in northeastern North Carolina. The Albemarle Sound and the Pamlico Sound are the 2 largest. That's where the Albemarle-Pamlico comes from. National, because that's where our money comes from. Estuary, a lot of people, if you can get past Albemarle-Pamlico, they don't know what an estuary is. Well, to make it as simple as possible, an estuary is where the rivers meet the sea. Some places are called bays or fjords. We refer to ours as the Albemarle-Pamlico estuarine system, at least that's what scientists refer to. The general public doesn't have a good way to refer to this interconnected network of sounds because we don't have anything shorter than Albemarle-Pamlico, at least not for the moment. So that's why every time I get introduced, if people are kind enough not to laugh at my last name or mix it up and call me hee-haw, they stumble over the 17 syllable name that is our program. So from here on out, after that long explanation, we'll just be ATMEP. So our sounds again are estuaries and a place where the rivers meet the sea. One of the reasons these estuaries are so important from an ecological perspective, they're very productive. These are nursery habitats for about 75% of the fish species that we catch along the eastern seaboard. A lot of these fish, they don't stay put, and they can migrate as far north as the Bay of Fundy, as far south as the Caribbean, but we're very strategically located on the Atlantic coast along with the Chesapeake Bay. We're kind of right at the merger of the Gulf Stream and the Labrador Current, so we have a lot of warm water and cold water fishes. So it makes us very unique. If I can put up a map of North Carolina, if you don't know where the sounds are, I know I grew up in Hickory, and of course live in the Triangle now. I used to always just go down to the beach to Wilmington. Wilmington's beautiful. I love it down there. But if you were to go down there, and that's kind of how you see North Carolina, you would miss these beautiful sounds up here in this entire region that we call Sound Country. It's pretty rural, but I want to take you for sort of a quick tour of some of the things that we see on a routine basis. We'll also have a couple of videos to show you as we go through this, but it's really a wonderful place to visit, to paddle, to get out in the water. I feel lucky that my only work day is this week. After that, we're all getting on a boat to do seagrass monitoring for the rest of the week. So I'm headed out bright and early, and I'm going to get to go see a lot of these places that we're going to talk about today. So I feel very fortunate in that regard. These are these are the stars of the various sounds and where they're located from north to south. That's Currituck Sound up north, and then Albemarle. Down below are Roanoke and Croatan sounds, actually opposite Croatan and then Roanoke. You get down in the larger sound, that big star out there by itself is Pamlico Sound, which is the largest sound in the system. Followed as you move down and right to left, Horse Sound, Back Sound, and Vogue Sound. And this interconnected network is known as the Albemarle-Pamlico Estuary system, or APES. So actually the name of our program, which was founded in 1987, was APES for about 7 years until we kind of completed. It was the Albemarle-Pamlico Estuary Study, of course, often confused with the Albemarle-Pamlico Estuary System. That provided enough confusion that they decided to change the name to ADMAP. So that's what we have. This is a picture of the watershed for the sounds. There are 6 major river basins that feed into our sounds. Running from, well, you can see them on the chart. You have the White Oak River Basin down there in the bottom right-hand corner, and then you move up into the Neuse system, which is where we are at the moment. Followed by the Tar-Pam. The big one out there that extends in the Virginia mountains is the Roanoke River Basin. Then the Chewan and the Pasquotank River Basin. So this is all the water that feeds into the sounds. And it's a huge system. The sounds themselves are about 3,000 square miles. The watershed that feeds into them is about 28,000 square miles. So protecting these is a massive undertaking of coordination. We certainly do the best that we can given the resources that we have, but there are a lot of moving pieces as we start to think about what it takes to protect these sounds in a comprehensive way. Just a few other notes as you look at this watershed map and think about all the things that are going on in here. There are about 9,300 miles of rivers and streams. So if you want to find a place to paddle solo, you can probably find it. 16,000 farms covering about 4.8 million acres. 2.8 million acres of wetlands, but we've lost about 130,000 since 1992. And that's our best guess. About 1.4. Go ahead.
Lost them to what?
It could be a number of things. Erosion, water level rise, development. Yep, all these things. Some good news, 1.4 million acres here are under conservation ownership of Stone Type. And there are about 4 million people which live here, which is obviously far and away the #1 impact on water quality in the sounds. Just on its own, but of course, it dumps its water into Pamlico Sound.
Is it fresh water?
Albemarle Sound is largely fresh. It's brackish, but what happens if you look? Do I have a pointer here? Let me see if I have a pointer. Look at that! I have a pointer. This is great. Okay, so you see the Outer Banks here on the right side, and as you can see, there's no break here in the Outer Banks. So you have to go all the way down here to Oregon Inlet before you get any direct saltwater influence, and you have this massive riverine system, the Roanoke, feeding in here. Wait, I got it backwards. The Roanoke's feeding in here, the Chewan's feeding in here, and of course all the coastal bays and the Pasquotank. So you're getting a huge freshwater influx compared to the ocean water that you normally see. So when we go out here, you can go up into Currituck Sound. It might be 1 part per thousand. Some readings around Edenton where we've sampled have been 1 or 2 parts per thousand. Often it can change from time to time. We get out here a little further east, and it might be up to 6 or 7. And then we're actually heading out to Kitty Hawk tomorrow. And we might see them get a little higher up there depending on the weather and the time of year. So, but yeah, it's largely fresh compared to, say, Pamlico Sound. And here's what you might see if you go out to paddle Roanoke Sound. The top one, this is one of my favorite pictures that I've taken. It's just miles and miles of the cypress and Spanish moss. A lot of great places to leave from too. This is really not far from Wilmington at all, or Wilmington. This is not far from Edenton at all. It's certainly an easy paddle. We went out on our power boats because we were doing monitoring, but you're also likely to come across some crab fishermen from time to time. And this is the waterfront in Edenton, the historic battery, one of the cannons out there. But certainly a beautiful town to go out and visit for the weekend, apart from what's on the water. Back Sound is home to some of our premier marine science institutions. Duke Marine Lab is located out here in Back Sound. The Rachel Carson Reserve is out there as well. You can go out, and on the backside of Back Sound, you can see the Cape Lookout Lighthouse. You can see the ponies out on Shackleford. So that's definitely a treat. If you've never paddled out there, you can paddle out from Beaufort down Taylor's Creek, and you can camp out on Shackleford Banks and go out there and watch the wild ponies from afar. In the picture on the bottom left, that egret, that's from Bird Island at the North Carolina Coastal Reserve, or the Rachel Carson Reserve down here. Bogue Sound is its sister just to the west, and it's where basically the rest of our premier marine science institutions are. NC State, UNC. This is also kind of ground zero for coastal management in North Carolina with the Division of Marine Fisheries, the DCM headquarters down there. So we spent a lot of time out on and around Bogue Sound just because there's a lot of interesting research and a lot of things going on down there. You can see one of the Bogue Sound sunsets on the bottom right. We take teachers out here into Bogue Sound for a Teacher and Student Salter Path every year. And I picked this photo in the bottom left off a couple weeks ago. I can't remember exactly what it is now, but I expect it's one of the coastal maritime forests within the Coastal Reserve. You have Croatan Sound. The reason I love Croatan Sound is because when I see Croatan Sound, it means I have made it to my vacation destination. You're heading out the Outer Banks. You got the Virginia Dare Bridge to cross, which is 5 miles long, gives you a wonderful view of the sound. Even though Croatan Sound itself is pretty small, when you drive over that bridge, it's small relative to the other sounds, but when you drive over that bridge, you get a sense of just how vast this system is. A lot of beautiful sunsets here in the Outer Banks. You can see the sunrises and the sunsets because the sounds are so big. You can see them both over the water. On the bottom right, Mans Harbor, which is a place people don't visit very often, but our state shipyard is out there, so a lot of maritime activity there, as well as on Manio. Core Sound, this is down east Carteret County, which really has a culture unto its own. There's a strong commercial fishing history there. A lot of decoy carvers. They have a decoy carving festival every year that I'd encourage anybody to go visit. Also a wonderful waterfowl museum. So a place you can go paddle, but also enjoy a lot of that unique down east culture as well. That's Marshallburg Harbor down there in the bottom left. Currituck Sound. I feel like the sounds are like my kids, and I can't pick a favorite one. But if I had to pick a favorite one, I think it's Currituck Sound. Just beautiful country up there. This is the lighthouse up in Corral and the Whalehead Club. This is on the bottom left. This is a picture of wild celery or seagrass, which is what makes the area so unique. It has a great waterfowl hunting history. The Whalehead Club was actually founded by the Knight family. Back in the 1920s, this gentleman, his last name was Knight, I can't think of his first name offhand, but he went out and he just bought 4.5 miles of the Outer Banks because he had that kind of money. And he went, and he had ritzy places elsewhere too, but it was completely desolate out here. He bought 4.5 miles of the Outer Banks. He built the Whalehead Club here for his wife, and you can go and see its kind of original Art Nouveau style today. You can go out and visit, and of course you can launch right from the county park out there. So
the story is that they wouldn't let her hunt in the regular hunt clubs, so he built her a system. But also the original hunt clubs were all very rustic, and I don't know that she would have even wanted to.
Well, that is not rustic. That is 21,000 square feet of not rustic. One of the things I love out here too when you get on the boats is all the duck blinds everywhere, and they're all a little different. They're all maintained by folks that live around there, but it's still a strong hunting tradition. It's just a nice place to go. Pamlico Sound, Pamlico Sound is the granddaddy. It's the biggest one, and yet there aren't a lot of big places to go out and really see the vastness of the sound itself. A lot of the bigger towns like Washington and Kinston. You're kind of getting further up into the river system, but a few places that you can see it. Top left, that's a shot from Engelhard. Top right is Stumpy Point. These are just very small towns, a few hundred people that live out here around the Sounds. That's Oriental and Pamlico County on the bottom left, which has a really strong sailing tradition, the sailing capital of North Carolina. And of course, if you make it out to Ocracoke, you can look at the vastness of the ocean, or you can turn around and look at the vastness of Pamlico Sound as well. Roanoke Sound, again, another tiny sound, but just chock full of great stuff to see. This is the Body Island Lighthouse. Top right is a restoration project that we help fund with the North Carolina Coastal Federation. This is the Jockey's Ridge State Park, so you can go visit that really anytime. There's also Nag's Head Woods, which is a Nature Conservancy property. A lot of great places to see, both on the land and the water. So it's pretty great. And so this is the part where I kind of say, all right, well, what can we do to sort of help these places out? And so I'll kind of run through this a little quickly. Number one, if you have medications, there are thousands and thousands of compounds that are flushed down the toilet, and this manager's weird, just struggling to get a handle on what's down there. And the easiest thing you can do is, instead of flushing the stuff down the toilet, is to take it to a local police station or an Operation Medicine Drop program. Again, 4 million people, if everybody's flushing their meds, you've got a lot of stuff in there, which goes down, it feeds into the ecosystems, it feeds into the local fish that we eat. So really, by doing that, we're kind of hurting ourselves in a way. So just something for your consideration.
But we pee it out too.
We do. That's right.
So it gets in the system that way too.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Now, I like to think our bodies break down somewhat, often, not always. But I wouldn't tell you to stop taking your medicine for this sentence. Fertilizer. Many of you, given the time you spend on the water, are probably familiar with the challenges of managing nutrient pollution. And I think the single easiest thing that anybody with a yard can do is, go easy on the fertilizer. If you use it at all, I try and make my weeds sort of the same length. My neighbors might not love me, but it's good for the watershed. It doesn't mean don't fertilize. If you do, maybe try and leave a little bit of a buffer between any hardened areas that are there. There's a big sweep event. These are typically held every October. I know, again, you all have boats and are mobile and are out there. So if that's not an opportunity you all take advantage of as a club or individually, I'd urge you to sort of consider it. We take a lot of marine debris out of our sounds and rivers through these clean sweeps every year. We're one of 28 national estuary programs nationwide. So you can see Albemarle-Pamlico right over there, tucked away in North Carolina. You can see a lot in the Northeast, some in Florida, a few on the West Coast. Do you all see any glaring emissions there?
South Carolina and Georgia.
Yeah, I'm wondering why they don't.
I heard South Carolina and Georgia. They're not as cool as us. I heard Great Lakes. That's a good catch. Great Lakes have the Great Lakes program, which is about $100 million that they spend every year. Any other big ones, maybe a little closer to home? That's missing. That's right. No one. I heard it. Chesapeake. That's right. So the Chesapeake Bay program. The Chesapeake Bay has their own EPA program, and that one program for the Chesapeake Bay gets about as much money as all the rest of these combined. And actually, I shouldn't say as much money. I should say 3 times as much money as all the rest of these combined. So just to paint sort of a general picture of our financial outlook, I just want you to be generally aware of that.
Does their proximity to Washington have anything?
It does not hurt. It does not hurt. But they've also had some really major, high-profile challenges that we're fortunate that we haven't had in our sounds, largely because our big population centers are upstream. So that's a good news, bad news sort of thing. So how we work, ecosystem-based management. Our job is really to see the big picture. Everything from upland areas, seeing water quality, how we manage our coastal environments, how we manage our fisheries. Looking at biological, ecological resources, being in touch with chemists, people that focus on sort of culture-related issues. We're sort of networked broadly to leverage this broader network to protect the sounds. And so what we do is a lot of coordination at all levels of government, everything from local governments to the federal level, which is where our funding ultimately comes from. A lot of academics. We're very fortunate in North Carolina to have great universities, great professors who spend a lot of time working with us, working with NGOs, and working with the private sector to improve the sounds. Our hope is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's what we really try to bring to the table when it comes to protecting the sounds. We have a comprehensive conservation and management plan that's targeted for the sounds, and there's a lot of science and a lot of planning that's gone into that. But it's basically, when you really boil it down, it's based on these questions. What do we think is a healthy system? And that's not what we, our staff, are for. It's what does this network of people that we work with think is a healthy system? What does that look like? And then the second question is, well, what does it actually look like, and how far are we from getting there? Question 3, what are the greatest challenges facing our system? And then question 4, of course, what action should be taken, which is actually, which is really the bulk of the plan. What is it that we're going to do for the next 10 years to try and make these sounds better? Now, I will say that these are aspirational questions in some way. I wish I could tell you to a T with 62 indicators exactly what made a healthy sound. We're just not quite there yet with the resources we have, but we are making progress. Another thing that we do, synthesizing environmental monitoring information. So you go talk to DWR, they can tell you all about the water quality, but they can't tell you about the marine life that's living out there. You go talk to DMF, and it's the opposite. We really try and bring these people into a room just trying to see the bigger picture, and sort of have a persuasive influence with those regulatory agencies, and with a lot of the sort of attractions that we work with too, the museum and our parks, places that are engaged in conservation, the Clean Water Management Trust Fund, who provides a lot of conservation support for initiatives throughout our region. And they also provide match funding for us, which we love very much. So, and of course, just the fine print. Basically, EPA grants some money to the state, to Diener, for us. It's about $600,000 annually, which is matched with the Clean Water Trust Fund. So when they go through and they fix up a river or when they improve a wastewater treatment plant, that's sort of credited toward our broader water quality mission. But we're actually a bi-state program as well. So we have representation in Virginia. We do work in Virginia. I love crossing the border. They're kind of like, oh, what are these guys from North Carolina doing here? And it's like, well, what you're doing impacts what we have. So, and a small staff. It comes and goes. We're roughly 4 full-time employees. I'm very grateful to have Katya here as an AmeriCorps member this year, and Mary Grace Knight sitting over here in the corner too, who's my summer intern. So on occasion we're able to staff up a little bit and make a little more progress. But another thing that's really fun is we often get sort of sub-grants for projects and broader work group initiatives to try and take these projects and bring them to fruition in a way that we wouldn't be able to working independently. So here's just one chart of, this is like the backbone of the CCMP. Nobody wants to read that, it's too small. But I hope it's important for you all to know that type of thought is going into these broad-scale planning initiatives. So that's the only reason I bring it up there. And how we go about our actions. Our management plan has sort of 5 sections. Identify the resources in the system. Protect, restore, engage, and then monitor. And I just want to give you a couple examples. This is from a talk I gave a few months ago to our policy board, just showing the diversity of things that we're able to be engaged in, given our limited resources, the way we're sort of able to network some of the people that we work with. So, you hear that clean water is worth a lot. It's worth money, right? It's good for real estate values. It's good for coastal tourism. There are economists that work to sort of determine exactly how much that value is. How much are healthy sounds worth? So we have a project underway with RTI right now to try and get a sense of just how much our healthy sounds are worth to the North Carolina economy. I think that's information that especially this current legislature is very interested in sort of understanding. We have a Seagrass fellow who's going to be out doing research for us. We'll be naming that any day now. I'm looking forward to that greatly. And staff support for a number of applied research projects. This is me in a sort of a fake NASA suit, but it's been we've been working with NASA pretty routinely. They have all these great satellites, which give us a lot of great environmental monitoring information. So we've been working with them to try and make sense of that monitoring information to provide some clues as to the state of the sounds. We've also been doing some work in Virginia to identify some of the healthiest watersheds in the Chewan Basin, so we can go out and protect them before they're developed. Some protection initiatives like Hydrilla Monitoring and outreach. You're going to hear a little bit more about Hydrilla later tonight from me. Hyde County resilience planning. So out in Hyde Hyde County sea level rise or water level rise, or whatever you want to call it. This isn't a theoretical thing. They have water on their fields. They have salt in their dirt. They are working now to try and take some steps to make sure that their farms can stand the test of time, or at least as long as possible, to make sure the wastewater treatment plants can stand the test of time. These are issues that are currently ongoing. Depending, regardless of what you read in the newspapers, there are people thinking really hard about this issue and trying to work through it. And that's an area we've been very fortunate to support. Restoration initiatives. We've had some fun at state parks over this winter doing restoration projects at Goose Creek and Brisbane Swamp. Historically, we've also done a lot of stormwater wetlands at schools, which we turn into outdoor classrooms. So we give students a chance to learn about water quality, but also to learn how to identify some marsh plants. And a lot of times those things are kind of fertile ground for local wildlife too. So a lot of great stories and a lot of great pictures, which I wish I'd had a little more time to put in here. Engagement. This is really the heart of what I do as our policy and engagement manager, is trying to hook in with other partners and trying to talk about our mission in a way that relates to people. A few things we do: we're hosting 2 teacher institutes this summer. So often when we can reach a teacher, when we can teach a teacher, we can teach 500 kids or more, depending on sort of the length of their career. And it's important not just to teach the teacher, but to show the teacher and get them out there and let them understand the environment. So when it's their turn to talk about North Carolina Sounds, they can do it with some passion, and they can do it with some first-hand knowledge of the system. So this year we're doing teacher institutes in North Cook and Salter Path down on both banks. These are a lot of fun for staff as well too. We get to get out and spend a little bit of time with the teachers and spend a little bit of time out on the water ourselves. We also do some smaller teacher workshops just to give out some teaching materials on the sounds. We also have a Shad in the Classroom partnership, and I'm gonna stop talking for a minute and show you a video. This has been a really great initiative. It's been a great partnership with Fish and Wildlife Service and the Museum of Natural Sciences here in Raleigh. We deliver little shad eggs that are raised at our hatchery to 24 schools across the region. And these little kids take care of these eggs. And just the slightest fluctuation in water quality means that those fish eggs will all die. So they are watching these things like hawks. They're learning about water quality, and then their little eggs hatch. They have little fry swimming around. And they all get on a bus, and they go down to the nearby river, and they let it go, and they usually hear from somebody. Katya over here is our AmeriCorps member, and she's been she has some documentary filmmaking experience. We brought Katya in to maybe help try and tell some of our stories through video. So I'm going to show you this quick Shad in the Classroom video, just so you get a sense of some of the fun projects that we do. That sounded so loud in my house. Can we put it on the speaker?
Your speaker. Is it all the way up on the class? That was free. I've never been to capture before, and to see what I do in my classroom on like a large scale, that was like impressive.
I'm Stephen Jackson. I'm the manager of the International Fish Hatchery. My job title is the senior fisherman. Our fish hatchery generally raise fish for restoration of U.S. waters, national wildlife military. The bulk of our production is Atlantic striped bass. We also do American shad and Quebec herring, lake sturgeon.
I went down to a little ranch in Smithfield. They were the old guys that sit there every day, and they would told me how great it was. Man, that's nice. You come down here, they turn loose these baby fish. You ever heard of that? Yeah, that's a lot of it. They're pretty cool.
Shad release her kids.
nutrients and greens for the fish are. And also think about what can you do personally to help those hopes and dreams come true.
Did anybody see the video? No, it is a really cool bird. It's called a prothonotary warbler. Follow the dark spots and see how they have words in them.
What kind of fish are shad?
They're naturalists.
Let's say it all together.
1, 2, 3, yes! A naturalist.
Where are they swimming to?
They're gonna swim to the ocean and then come back. Come back in like 5 years. A naturalist. I think this is year 6. I'm very passionate about conservation, making the Neuse River a better river is important to me. I think that is kind of my driving passion, just to help restore the river. I think the release is my favorite part too. Yeah, taking the shad fries to the river, say goodbye to a little shad, make it real well.
Shad in the classroom went really well this year. This is my 2nd year doing it, so we set up the tank in my classroom a couple weeks early and got our water all set up. And then when we got our eggs, most of them hatched, and we were able to release them back into the river. We had one kid that wrote this quote. It was probably the highlight of my entire year. He wrote that doing the Shad in the Classroom program made him realize that our community just isn't our school and the people we live with, but it's the whole world, and the whole natural world is included in that. So I thought that was kind of what my mission is as a Montessori teacher. So if I can get that out of a kid for doing this project, I'll definitely do it again as many times as I can.
I feel like the students actually learn more, they retain information, and it's an actual memory they would have.
It's like, oh, remember 8th grade when we mentioned release those fish.
Got to do it instead of like watching somebody else do it.
We could read about water quality in a book, but you can't hatch shad eggs in a book or feel like an emotional connection to them. So just the fact that they can see it in their classroom and hold it in their hands really is pretty amazing to them. And kind of just like makes them feel part of something bigger. Their connections like to what the world really is outside of our school.
I have a great reflection. Those reflections like, oh, it's so fascinating. I had so much fun, or I learned so much, or even like they want to do something in biology, nature, or their careers. I think that shows me there was a connection made somewhere.
So this is where you could be going as soon as next week. And this is the Devil's Gut Trail.
We were camping overnight on the platform tents to learn a little bit more about the swamp.
It's a refreshing, it's a new trip teachers get to take. It just helps you remember this is why we're doing this. And then what we do there, teachers can take back into the classroom with the students. So I recommend any teacher would have that new trip. It's very fun.
What'd you catch?
You're gonna take home.
See your fish? Just a fish for the first time yesterday.
Where's that?
Yeah, that's it. Look at that! How awesome is that? You gonna ask if you're gonna eat them for supper. You gonna eat them for supper?
Kids, not sure.
So that's 6 minutes of our Shad in the Classroom partnership in a way that I wouldn't really be able to tell. Again, why we're so grateful to have Katya here through the AmeriCorps program. It's really been a great boost for us. But we're able to do other initiatives like this too, some of which we'll also hopefully be able to catch on film. We have a project going out near Lake Mount Mesquite High School, where a lot of the students are out collecting crabs and doing research. We also bring them down to the Duke Marine Lab to show them another part of the estuary, and learn from some pretty serious Duke professors down there. A number of education outreach publications. You might be familiar. There's a river basin booklet that tells about river basins for each watershed in North Carolina, each river basin. It has a lot of great information, but it also has some paddling recommendations, things like that. So if you ever want to learn about the places that you're paddling, you can go to the Office of Environmental Education. You can just look at the PDF copy, or you can even order them if you need to, but PDF's probably...
So you can download?
You can download it. Mm-hmm. Yep, they're all there. If you do a search for North Carolina River Basin booklets, you go right to it. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the watershed you're paddling in, I couldn't recommend that enough. But we often provide funding to help make sure that they have those, so when the teachers ask for class sets, they can actually teach their students about some of that. We also have some postcards here in the bottom. I actually brought a bunch. I don't have a table to set up, but we have pens and postcards, so we can maybe set them up afterwards if you want to take a few. And we also do some monitoring. So coming here toward the end of what AppNet does, one of the really big things that we're able to do that no individual agency has been able to do on its own, and of course including us because this is a partnership effort, is to do seagrass mapping. Seagrass is an annoyance if you paddle out there, but if you're a fisherman, this is the best because this is habitat for all these fish in the estuaries and all the ones that make their way out in the ocean as well. We're very fortunate. We have about 138,000 acres of seagrass, or it's called submerged aquatic vegetation, in our sounds. We're able to detect that by putting $1 million camera on a DOT plane and flying over about 13,000 feet on a real clear day, and then sort of delineating all the seagrass beds out there and sort of counting it up. So we've only been able to do this one time ever for the entire estuary system. And just in a matter of weeks, we're going to have our next sort of full census of seagrass throughout the sound. So for the first time ever in North Carolina, we're going to be able to tell if things are getting better, if they're getting worse, if they're staying about the same. And we can make those conclusions not just about the broader estuary system, but we can also look at specific areas within the estuary system to see if some places are getting better, some places are getting worse. And this is really a pretty sensitive indicator to water quality. So a lot of the seagrass really tells us that the water is, for the most part, looking the way we want it to look. And of course, this is what we're heading out to do Tuesday through Thursday. So, like shad in the classroom is like the great thing to look forward to in the spring. But seagrass monitoring is what we really love. It's what we really love to do in the summer. Is an effort from UNC that does a lot of intensive monitoring on the Neuse River, which is of course where we've seen a lot of our major pollution problems as they feed into Pamlico Sound. There are a number of monitoring stations throughout the Neuse, but we also can get vertical profiles as well as getting profiles across the river. So that's an effort that we've often supported, and as we see sort of a climate of less and less funding for monitoring efforts, we're doing everything we can to sort of keep some of this up. If you're attuned to recreational water quality monitoring, you might have read that DMF actually closed down about 30 sites. I think it's roughly 30 sites for recreational water quality monitoring a few months ago. Well, that would have been closer to 60, but we're still providing some funding for that just to try and keep it going. However, at the moment, we often provide bridge funding to keep these long data sets going. And of course, we think it's important for people to know what they're swimming in. But given our limited funds, our limited resources, we sort of consider ourselves bridge funding. So our hope is that we can find the other end of this bridge, but of course, we're not sure if that's going to happen or not.
What did the yellow dots represent on that last slide?
The yellow dots represent places that AppNet, that our program has basically taken over funding for. So it's still DMF staff, but those are places that would have gone away but for our funding this year. And they likely will go away next year, although I haven't seen the specific budget outlay for this particular program during the session of the General Assembly.
It's a state-funded program? Or is it a federally funded?
It's a little bit of both. EPA has provided some funding in the past, and they're sort of cutting their allocations. The state's cutting some as well. So there just hasn't been enough to maintain the robust monitoring network that we've been able to do in the past. So there's a real prioritization. You try and monitor the places where there are kids' summer camps and people are using the water a lot, In places that are utilized but maybe less so, we have to make our decisions. That's sort of the nature of it. We've also done some monitoring work with USGS and intensive monitoring surveys around Albemarle Sound. So that's these are all the things that we get to do, and it makes for a really rewarding career. I have to say I love my work with AtNet. One of the things that I want to talk to you all about today as we sort of get into our last few minutes, and I had a movie and I could play it for you, but I think we're running out of time a little bit. I'm a good Presbyterian, so I like it when church ends 5 minutes early. And so I think I might be able to do the same for you all today. But I want to tell you about Hydrilla real quick. This is Rob Evans on the right here on the screen. Rob is our state's invasive species guru, for lack of a better term. If we find invasive plants anywhere in the state, it's Rob's job to go out, find it, document it, spray it, kill it. Over time, we're seeing more and more challenges with this plant Hydrilla, which largely grows in freshwater, but can extend out into brackish water as well. This is the stuff that grew in Lake Waccamaw that made such a big story. Lake Waccamaw, I think there are maybe at least half a dozen species that live in Lake Waccamaw and nowhere else. And it didn't take too long before half of that lake was completely full of this Hydrilla. Well, about halfway full. And to actually effectively treat and remove this stuff, it takes 7 years because it grows underground, it has tubers, you have to come back year after year to treat it. So it's a constant management challenge. There is some good news on this front in that there's, at least in the House budget right now, there's a big outlay for invasive species monitoring. So it seems like there's some real estate support to go out and take a big whack at some of the major invasive species populations that we're seeing in Lake Waccamaw, but also the Eno River, which is maybe a little closer to home, and this project that we're working on, which is up in the Chowan River Basin. Again, I have this video. I'll encourage you when we finish up, I'll encourage you to maybe kind of visit our website and maybe learn a little bit more about us. We do have a YouTube site where these great videos that Katya is shooting is up, and you can learn a little bit more about this Hydrilla project. It's about a 10-minute video. And if you take me up on my offer here, that'd be the first thing that I'd recommend, that you sort of take a little bit of time and watch that. So if you look at these yellow dots right here, what these yellow dots are, this is a group of local folks from around Edenton, and they're going out on their boats, and Sea Grant has provided support to basically build an app where they can go out, they're throwing rakes in the water, they're pulling up the grass just a little bit, and they're trying to identify invasive species to make sure that we can sort of find them and check them early before they become bigger problems. And they've had a lot of success doing that, but to really get a handle on this issue, any kind of local volunteer support is helpful, or even if it's not local, even if it's sort of a specially trained SWAT team, which is what I would envision you all being if this were something that you were to get engaged in. They go out and they do this every year, about in August to September. They conduct a local training out there in Chowan County, and they go out with the team in their boats, and they sort of just go along the shore and start taking rake samples every so often. They identify the species that are there, and they say, we found Hydrilla, we haven't found Hydrilla. And this network, we don't have any sort of formal, high-tech, sophisticated tie-in with the Division of Water Resources, but we're working with Rob and the Division of Water Resources on this project, so when we find stuff out here, we can document where it is, and we can send Rob out there to get rid of it. And we're also working on sort of improving our data knowledge capabilities, going from a notebook to record where we spray things to having a GIS layer that shows everywhere that we're seeing Hydrilla, everywhere that we're spraying it, so we can really track our progress as we try and fight this stuff.
How far upstream does this stuff go?
So it actually prefers freshwater. So there's Hydrilla in the Eno River, which is just here in Durham, and that's been a challenge for the state park out there. Of course, we're not out doing Hydrilla surveys all the time, so the true extent of this stuff is hard to say. In places that are maybe a little more highly managed, like a park, we might be more likely to find it, especially if there are a lot of people visiting. But there are other places where it may just be grown and we have no idea. And of course, ultimately, it breaks off, it floats downstream, and I don't want to say it grows at an exponential rate. It feels like an exponential rate if it's not actually an exponential rate. It's the kind of thing that if you don't get a handle on it early, it just becomes a bigger challenge down the road, which I think the state is recognizing. I'm really happy about that. So what you can see that there's been a lot of sampling done over here on the coastline in Chihuahua County, but not really much in Bertie County, and not much sort of moving up. So we've been working with Seagrass to try and provide some support. There's about a 5-county area of the Chihuahua River Basin where they're really interested in trying to get a handle on this issue. Eatonton has really kind of run with the ball and test run this app. And we're going to work to get some local folks out there to do some more of this along the Chihuahua River as well. But there's not as many people out there, maybe not as many boats. And I think this might be an opportunity to both paddle in a beautiful place and maybe collect a little bit of information on behalf of the state as well, too. So if you wanted to do something like this, I would work with Gloria Putnam at Sea Grant. We'd probably put together a 2-hour training for you. We could do that either here in the Triangle, or we could do that depending on sort of where the base of your club is. If there are a lot of folks in the Chihuahua-Eatonton area that just want to get engaged, they can come to the training that's already scheduled for August 22nd. But we train you. It'd be a limited amount of training. We teach you how to ID these species and how to use this app. We put some tablets on your boats and your dry bags, and we'd send you out with some rigs, which aren't like full rigs with a long handle, but almost little like throw rigs on the end of a rope. You can throw out, pull a little bit of grass back, and do some species IDs. So this is the kind of thing that you might schedule a couple-day paddle trip around to go out, not just to enjoy the beautiful area, but also to collect some data that might be used to tackle what's really a pretty serious problem for us that we're doing everything we can to get a handle on. So there's no pressure here, but I wanted you to know that that's available. And it might be a way to sort of mix your interest in paddling with your broader interest in preserving and protecting water quality. So I will leave that with you. You don't have to make that decision tonight. Nancy knows how to get a hold of me if that's something you all decide you want to do. And so I'll just leave you with this. I really appreciate your time tonight. I'm honored by the invitation. Again, abnap.org is where you can go and you can learn a little bit more about us. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter if that's your thing. We're constantly updating things. We also have a mailing list where we tend to send out things like Katya's wonderful video and provide some broader updates on Estuary, where we sort of send our big news to. So if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about what we do, and you're most welcome to sign up to that. I promise you I'll take it easy on the listserv. We're busy enough to write a lot of emails. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions for a few minutes, and I think maybe we can call it a night.
Does Hydrilla travel by boats too? I heard that it also travels on boats that people take from lake to lake.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So one of the things that we tell people is if you're boating and you want to be a responsible boater, is to wash off your prop, make sure there's no grass there, because that's actually how it spread. We first saw it in the Carr Lake Reservoir. We started seeing it in Falls Lake, and from there we just kind of saw it. And it's in almost every county. Almost every county in the eastern part of the state.
So you can see the grass blades that actually propagate. It doesn't leave anything invisible or anything.
Not that I know, but you can only help by kind of getting rid of those big grass blades. Hopefully, if you drive far enough, you'll be in good shape. But you can always take it to a boat wash and hose it down if you want to be really thorough. So I know there are practicalities associated with some of that, but.
Where does Hyde go?
I wish Marie were here. Marie is our former AmeriCorps member who actually shot this. I want to say Eurasian. That's like a pretty broad area, right? They are invasive to North America. Right? I want to say Asian, but definitely the other side of the world. And of course, invasive species. Some species come over here and they can't survive our conditions, but other species come over here. Not only are they well suited to our conditions, but they don't have any natural predators. And that's what we see with hydrilla. The fish species that might keep them in check where they're native, they're just not here. So they're really.
I think hydrilla might have been introduced with the aquarium industry because it's such a successful thing to populate fish tanks with. And then people come to,
that's exactly right.
A lot of exotic species get introduced by and industry activities.
That's exactly right. And I know that's right because it's in the 10-minute video that we researched thoroughly.
What are the control measures?
It really sort of depends on, and I'm not a hydrilla expert, I have to tell you that right out of the gate. But I know there are a number of things you can do. You can do a chemical treatment. And again, it really depends on if you're in a big lake, if you're in moving water, different things work for different environments. You can also do mechanical removal, going in and kind of digging stuff out.
What do they do in Lake Walker?
You can do biocontrol. You can put in
Because I thought Lake
carp.
Walker used to have it really bad, and they introduced some fish.
I want to say
Carp?
I want to say Asian carp.
I think it's
perhaps. But of course, when you start introducing new invasive species to control the other invasive species,
something else to get rid of.
it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it is the best option, but it's something to be very conscious of as managers. Those are the sorts of things we think about.
Are there any other invasive species that you study or work with other than?
I'd say that maybe that we're mindful of. So if you were to go out and do this project, hydrilla is sort of the big thing that we're looking for, but we'd also teach you how to identify Eurasian water milfoil, which is another invasive species out there. Out in the sounds, I see sprigs of it kind of everywhere, but I don't see these big dominant mats, which is good. But it most certainly is. It most certainly is out there. And what you want to make sure is that it's not sort of dominating and outcompeting the local systems.
But you're primarily water plants. You're looking at basically water plants. You're not looking at onshore plants or anything.
So Phragmites is a big wetlands related plant that we sort of track.
I have a lot of that.
Okay.
And it's a big problem where I am on Currituck Sound. And so I was wondering if you did anything with Phragmites, I guess.
So
or what?
Rob's the guy that might go out and spray frag too. We get a pretty good handle on it in some of the conservation managed areas that we have. So we have a sense of like where Phragmites is in our parks and our coastal reserves. But as far as sort of a general coastline-wide census, we don't have that right now. So if you were to look at our ecosystem assessment, we have identified places where we know there's Phragmites and tried to set a baseline, and we go back and revisit. We'll have a sense of whether things are improving.
Well, I live near Whalehead, or the house I have is near Whalehead, so there's a lot of it there.
Yeah.
And where our house is in particular, there was like a wetlands designation on there where that was all it was. But then now it's, everywhere in the whole neighborhood, just about.
Yeah, well, and those are, you can call Diener and kind of try and get it on their list. That's, or, you might be able to take local measures, working with your local government to do some of that. Often when Rob comes and sprays, the local government has to match 50-50. So if you're seeing a challenge there, I might suggest maybe even working through your local government.
Okay, I'll look on the website.
Yeah. But, my job is to kind of field inquiries and things like that. So if you have broader interest in this, I wish I had brought a card, but you can find me under the contacts list. Don't be shy at all about picking up the phone and calling me or sending me an email. That's what I get paid to do. So, it's most certainly an open door. I very much enjoy the opportunity to work with you all a little more if the opportunity presents itself. Even if it doesn't present itself, maybe I'll come here and paddle with you guys one of these days. That's what
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's say there too.
I'd like to mention one thing that UNCW has a program every year. It's called North Carolina Coastal Issues. And it's a class they start up north part of the coast and come all the way down. And part of the course, they talk to resource managers to see what issues they're having locally. That might be a good resource for you to have some eyes
Absolutely.
on a wide stretch of the coastline.
Yeah.
Professor that does that, he's had a lot of good study with Rachel Carson.
And if he's a professor?
Jim Harshine.
Okay. Great.
He's looking at the effects that the horses have on the island.
Yeah, I didn't get into that whole.
Well, yeah, there's a big conflict going on because
absolutely.
there's competing
That's right.
doctrines as far as how we're supposed to manage that land. But we also did a study for the Corps of Engineers several years ago on the economic impact of our inlets.
Okay.
Because a lot of inlets were starting to close up.
Well, that's a huge challenge for us right now.
Yeah. So we did an environmental impact study before.
I appreciate the reference.
So are you guys part of DINA?
We are. So we like to think of DINA as our host. DINA gets a grant from the feds, and I get paid by DINA. But we work as much outside of DINA with our federal partners, with our state partners, getting out in the communities and trying to tackle some of these issues. NGOs. So we're not a nonprofit. We got to live somewhere. We kind of live in DINA, but we try and work with our external partners every bit as much as we work with our partners in DINA. Mm-hmm. So we don't have a narrow, focused regulatory mission. We have this broader mission to sort of protect and restore the sounds the best way we can figure out how to do it.
That's amazing.
I wish there was more. I hope there's some good news on the horizon. We're presently planning to expand that core staff out to 6, which might include a grant writer. So we're starting to think about ways to maybe improve our resources a little bit. But it is a bit of an uphill battle. Again, I said it before, in some ways I'm glad. The fact that we have a smaller program means that we don't have these major critical issues that have millions of people marching on Jones Street. I'm happy that we don't have the issues, and yet there are a lot of challenges out there that we're trying to get a handle on. That we're always resource limited, and that's the nature of government, and I understand that.
So how much is climate change part of your vision or mission or conversation? I know it's somewhat of a political football in a way.
It is.
And so, anytime you try to bring those considerations into management.
Sure. So climate undoubtedly is an important driver in our system. I don't think there's any disagreement that we're seeing some changes. Sort of the scope of those changes and how they're going to manifest itself are something that everybody talks about and things that we're all trying to get a handle on. I showed you that picture looking at doing some coastal resilience work in Hyde County. We're not really focused on the big picture scientific explanations. We're focused on sort of on-the-ground impacts and trying to mitigate those in the best way possible, recognizing some of the trends that might be coming through. So, we know when we bring people around the table that you start talking about climate change, and a lot of people have a lot of different views, but we try and focus on areas where we can bring some consensus and try and move the ball. Well, again, I really appreciate the invitation.